Yes, people. Yes, people. Black Eyes TV in the house once again. Back with another show. Again, we're bringing back Kings and Queens United, the sisters from that organization, with a guest that they will be speaking to today. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Riggs. Speak to the people then, brother.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're going to enjoy this beautiful show. We have the kings and queens, and we have the beautiful lady we call CEZANNE, Journey of Our Sisters. And I hope you enjoy this whole long day of information. Now we're going to introduce Sister Mott and Tamira from the Kings and Queens. Take it away. Sisters, we can't hear you. You're just on mute.
Sorry. I forgot about that. Hi everyone, I'm Tamar Waffle, the founder of Kings and Queens United. Many people may also know me as the co-founder of Good as Gold events, or perhaps from the coffee mornings that I do helping Black women who's been sexually abused to heal and overcome. Kings and Queens United is about the relationship between the Black man and the Black woman, sustainable relationships. We create platforms for Black men and women to meet in a healthy and sustainable way. And we've run a number of workshops where we've looked at many issues in relationships, including dating, courting, healing. We've also looked at relationship resolution, love languages, different ways we communicate. And there's loads more to come. If you tune in, not just to this show tonight, but we've got loads more shows coming up over the next few weeks. And we've got our big 1 year anniversary where we'll be relaunching our dating website and celebrating some of the successful relationships within our community. So too often we hear about the negative, and Kings and Queens is definitely about promoting the positive. So that will be on the 16th of December, and we'll try and get some information up on YouTube so you can check it out yourself. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Sister Mutt, so I'm on the team for Kings and Queens United. So my background is in childbirth as a professional birthing partner. And I came on team with Tamar, and we have a lot of common interests around relationships and working with the community around that. Inside of my work, I work closely with the Black community in terms of relationships and working through relationship issues. So Kings and Queens United is certainly a platform for dealing with things like conflict resolution, like we said, dating and courtship, but also, we're dealing with things like spiritual sex, the power of intimacy. And our relationship with that means that, it allows for, us to deal with things like post-traumatic slave syndrome, the impact of that on our relationships and how that shows up in today's relationships. So, we're working tirelessly for our community right now to allow for an opening for relationships and Black love to be present in our community. And also this opportunity event that we're going to be having on the 16th of December, Rock on Island Cafe in Old Kent Road. We will be showcasing, a little bit of what we're up to as well. And also it gives you an opportunity to come down and see what we're about. And also if you're a sponsor or somebody wants to sponsor the event or want to bring your skills to the table, and we'll support you to be a sponsor, just contact us at Kings and Queens United.
So yeah, I'll just add to that. So you can contact us at kingsandqueensunited.com or info@kingsandqueensunited.com.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
And we've got the fantastic Shazanne. Shazanne, I'll let you introduce yourself to the viewers.
Hello, my name is Shazanne. I am an author, so I write books that, again, are geared towards building sustainable Black relationships. So I have one book out called How to Get the Ring on Your Finger, where I interviewed single men and married men to ask them what would make them put the ring on the finger, or what made them put the ring on the finger of the queens that they married. And then I have a self-help novel called Journey of a Sister, which was originally titled Single, Spiritual and Sexual. And that book, again, is around Black relationships. So it just follows this couple on their journey over like a 13-year period. So individually, how they grew and the growth of their relationship as well. So I also do workshops, retreats, and events. Yes. So as you know, I recently did the Kings and Queens book tour, which is literally how we all kind of came together, really. I've been working with Tamar on some events, and I actually know Mut from a long time ago, and I used to do a project in Croydon called Mums in Action, where we linked mums together to support each other. So I've been doing a lot of work in our community for a long time, a long time actually. And I'm very passionate about helping our community to heal, beginning with the Black woman, because she's the core of the family, and the family is the core of the community. So my work is really around helping the Black woman to heal, because she's also the one raising the next generation. So it's important that our children, you know, that we break that cycle of post-traumatic slave syndrome, so that it's not passed down to the next generation as it has been doing since the days of the enslavement of our ancestors. So it's time now to break that cycle so that the next generation don't go through the psychological trauma that we've endured as descendants of enslaved Africans.
No doubt. And let me just say, before you ladies begin your full-blown conversation, again, for people that don't realize, this is a series of shows that we've been running on Black Eyes TV 7, where we're looking at different aspects of relationships in association with Kings and Queens United, and basically bringing on different guests like our sister today to look at the different and various aspects of relationships. So for those who don't know, today's subtitle heading is about self-love within a relationship and those kinds of areas, as well as to do with the sisters directly. So again, not just today is a standalone show as always, but there are other shows now, at least 2 other shows that we've done that you can go and check out, where you'll see the sisters again going into other aspects of the relationship dynamic. So again, sisters, take it away, go in. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie. I mean, look, Shazanne, obviously we've known each other a while, and I think, you know, I just want to firstly acknowledge the journey you've had. Well done. You've done fantastic. And, you know, you've really grown as a woman, as a person, as a mother, as a human being. So I just want to acknowledge you on that. And, you know, the work that you're doing, you know, you're an artist as well. I don't think you've really shared that.
Did I mention that?
No, you didn't. Actually, you're an artist. She's a fantastic, phenomenal artist. So I think, you know, it's a pleasure to be with us at Kings and Queens United. And I think it makes sense for us to, you know, welcome you into, you know, into Kings and Queens United space to discuss, you know, self-love, to discuss the healing of relationships, and, you know, just create a discussion amongst us as sisters, you know, women who are about inspiring women and the community and our men, such that, you know, what love, you know, lasts, it sustains itself, a legacy is built. It's really important. We know the importance of it. Hence, we are all, coming together like activists, if you like. The Black Love activists, I'd call us. Let's coin that. That's mine. And so it means that, we're, the joy of being an activist around Black love, if not us, then who? So it makes sense that we come into this space, where do we start? If ladies, let's open up the conversation. And to Richie and Terry, by all means, jump into the conversation, because the Black love is with us all. Our children are born, are to be born from love. Yeah, there are psychological implications when a child is born through love. So we have to, break a particular cycle, break a particular chain of events, take a look at, what the crises are in our community. As we know, there is a lot of things going on in our community, especially with our young boys and our young girls. And we have to address them. And it starts with us as parents, as women, as men. And so, the conversation for healing, is not to be taken lightly. And I think as much as we can make light of it, is a very important conversation, because where do we start? And so CEZANNE, I suppose that's the conversation to start with.
Well, the start is with self-love. That's exactly it. That's having come out of the church and gone into the Black conscious community, spent 3 years there. I came to the conclusion that the root cause of our problems is lack of self-love. So for my own personal journey, having been brought up in the church and my childhood upbringing as well, each week we were taught to sing songs about being poor, wretched sinners, not worthy, not good enough, and it was a programming that a lot of us as Christians or whatever faith we were brought up in, we were taught to feel inferior. And that goes back to slavery times, where the slaves were taught to feel that they were inferior to their masters. So as a child, I was raised with an inferiority complex. So my journey was that journey of learning to love myself unconditionally and raising my confidence and self-esteem. And it's a continual journey. But having come out of church and gone into the Black conscious community, I noticed that even though they may have broken the chains of the indoctrination, there's still, because the psychological damage that we've endured is so deep and it's on so many levels, but the root of it is a lack of self-love. So we were taught to love everybody else and to put everybody before ourselves, when really you just have to love yourself first. And then when you're filled with love, then you can give of your overflow. Most of us are running on a self-love deficit. So it's a journey to self-love. So we cannot love someone else or even receive love from someone else unless we have that love for ourselves first. And that is the journey that many of us are on. Some of us say we want love, but we don't actually love ourselves. So we're trying to get love from other people, but we don't really love ourselves. And that is what we need to work on. So
if we can if we can feed a little bit more into that, what would you say then are some of the key issues surrounding us in terms of the lack of love that we have for ourselves? How does it
play out in
itself
relationship?
in our everyday lives and including our relationships?
Yes, so for instance, as I was saying, that many of us say, we want to be loved. We want to find love. But the place to look for love is within. And when you find love within and you learn to love yourself first, you will then emulate that love that you have for yourself and attract that love that you feel for yourself. That's the way it works, but we weren't taught that.
You're right. Like too many times, I'm around people where we get into conversations about what are we looking for in a relationship, and many times the picture that's painted as to what the person is looking for in a relationship, when you actually sort of put it back to them to say, are you ready for what you're asking for, or what value can you then add to someone's life in the way that you've painted the picture? If that person was to walk in front of you now, also with self-love side of things.
Yes, because you're going to attract a reflection of yourself. So you should always be looking at yourself. You should always be. It's not what you're looking for. It's are you that? Are you what you say you're looking for? Because you have to be the love that you're seeking for yourself. In fact, I have a poem, Self-Love Poem. This is my painting, Self-Love. I don't know if you could actually, hold on.
Yep, I got that.
Yeah. So this is part of my journey. The journey to self-love. During my journey, I painted this painting called Self-Love, and there's a poem that goes with it. And it says, embrace yourself in all your natural beauty. Look within, and you will find the love you've been seeking. Fill yourself up with love, and then give of your overflow. And as you do so, the whole world will be a reflection of the love you found within. So most people are looking for love outside of themselves, you know, but you've got to find it within first.
And how do we find that love within?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, and I had a self-love deficit, and I'm still going through that process of filling myself with love. But it's really, as the painting showed, it was through meditation, really, looking at myself from within, rather than thinking, oh my God, you know, I can only love myself by how I look. I had to really go deep within myself and find myself, my true self, and that is what I fell in love with, believe it or not. So I find that when I go out now, it's almost like maybe I'm radiating it, and then I'm attracting it, and that's exactly the way it's supposed to be, rather than you trying to find it or trying to get it to come, you know, getting people to love you. Just love yourself, and then other people will automatically love you.
Ladies, we're just trying to regulate the levels here because there's a slight echo. So if everyone can turn down the volume of all of your devices that you're using to try and help, because I can't seem to change the echo on my end. So just to make sure that everybody's devices are turned down for me, see if that helps. It's still clear. Don't worry, we're getting the information and that. But
Mine's down to the lowest.
Okay, lovely.
If you turn the volume down, though, you won't be able to hear, though, would you?
No one has any other.
Can you hear, Tamar?
Do they?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Does anyone have any other devices on, like playing the YouTube?
No.
No.
All right, cool. All right, then, yeah, you continue with your conversation. Thank you.
Right, where were we?
break everyone's train of thought.
And that the whole topic of self-love, it's so vast, really. And especially when you're dealing with our community. Because as I said, many of us were taught to, well, especially as children, because you know the imprint period is 0 to 7, and anything that goes in a child's mind during that imprint period stays in their subconscious mind right up until they're an adult. So they're running on their subconscious programming. And I had to learn this because I had so many issues in my life that I had to learn what was going on with my mind. And that's when I learned about the imprint period. So as children, that's why they taught those enslaved Africans to treat the children in a certain way. And even the whippings that they received was all about the mind. It was all about breaking down their psyche. Yeah. In order to be able to reprogram it. So the level of psychological damage that we have endured, even as descendants of enslaved Africans, it's not easy. I've personally found that it's not easy to just change it.
But don't you
Years
think,
of work.
But don't you think, I mean, like, let's open the conversation now for us, but all, and let's look at this realistically. I mean, we definitely know that slave trauma is definitely alive and well in how, you know, we only have to look at young people in our community and young boys killing young black boys. That is a serious condition, yeah? And it's something that's really important. You know, our healing as a community, you know, when we're looking at our relationships, when we're looking at loving ourselves and getting to know ourselves, you know, sometimes, you know, I know when I meet people who are coming into their consciousness and, you know, loving yourself, like you're saying, is not taught, right? So, you know, in that kind of dialogue, it means that we're not in a position to, you know, no one teaches us. I mean, there is actually a fantastic read, and every woman should have it. It's called An African American Woman's Guide to Self-Pampering, or the Sacred Pampering Principles. But it's an amazing read. And all women, you know, it teaches women about how to pamper themselves. And even such that if they have, even if they're mothers of sons or daughters, that their children should see how they pamper and look after themselves. Yeah. Because it will teach a man how to look after a woman, and it will teach a young lady how to look after herself. And these are the kinds of things, you know, we're far removed from that dynamic where we have a legacy of pampering and care, self-care, and men having self-care for themselves and being able to teach their sons self-care and daughters about self-care. We're very far removed from that. And when we're looking at things like slave trauma, what do you, I suppose, and I open this up to yourself as well, Tamar, you know, like where do we really start is the question. You know, and I'm not saying, we would talk about self-love. Where does self-love really start?
Yeah, but the whole thing with pampering as well, some people would say that by going and getting their nails done, that's self-care, or putting a weave on or putting makeup on, that's self-care. But that is not really
no, that's like a plaster. That's like a plaster.
That's what I'm saying. It's more like you're patching up. You're just patching up what's going on inside. That's not. So when you're saying self-care, it's not necessarily about those things, although they have their place.
Slightly different.
But it's different. The type of self-care, it's really the inner work that has to be done. And yes, you know, having candlelit baths. I love doing things like that, or going and having a sauna and a steam or a massage or a facial. They're all really good. But the work that really needs to be done is the inner work on building yourself, your self-talk, how you think about yourself, how you talk to yourself, and how you talk to others about yourself is really important, because that's what's going to build you up. So for me, I had to spend years doing affirmations, just talking to myself. I was, you know, reprogramming my mind to believe in myself, to love myself, to sometimes even now I still have to look in the mirror and just tell myself I love you, because it can be so easy to just fall back and backslide into my old ways of thinking about myself, because I was raised to believe I was ugly. You know, I had programming that made me grow up with really low self-esteem. So therefore, that self-care for me is constantly talking to myself and reinforcing the positive affirmations about myself. That's how I even unblocked as a writer and an artist, because for 20 years I was a blocked writer and artist because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't, you know, I had really low self-esteem. So part of my healing journey enabled me to unblock as a writer and an artist. So self-talk is was the main part of my self-care. You know, it wasn't even about nails and hair and facials. It was the inner work that has to
what
be
you
done.
say to yourself, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Because your subconscious mind is listening. I use self-care
Definitely.
when I say that, because some women are even far removed from that, caring for themselves. You know, when you're a mother, it's very difficult. That is somewhere to pull you back from.
Yeah.
But that work also, you know, I look at that work, the work, the inner work. I suppose it comes to that old age saying about who am I? And that conversation about peeling back who you are. Who are you when you're not a mother? Who are you when you're not a friend? Who are you when you're not a teacher or a nurse in the family or the community, part of the community? Who are you at your core? And that's a conversation that, you know, we don't get to be taught and don't get to explore. You know, we think we are our titles.
Yes, and another thing that really would help, especially Black women, to develop confidence and self-esteem is to really know yourself and, you know, understand yourself on another level. So, for instance, when I learned about melanin, you know, when I learned about the natural hair, what it, you know, the properties of our natural hair, the melanin in our skin, the power of our yoni and our womb, you know, look, we're quite powerful beings. So that helped me to build confidence and self-esteem in who I am as a Black woman, and the power of the Black man and woman when they're together, you know, in unity. That helped me to build confidence and self-esteem, knowing who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the key is asking who am I and being able to know and identify with who you are. I suppose for me, where the starting point would be is understanding our story, understanding where we're coming from, understanding, you know, how the programming of the mind have worked over centuries and still working now. It impacts the way we see, it impacts the way we see the world, how we see ourselves, and also how other people sees us as well. Understanding, you know, how the whole post-traumatic slave syndrome, how it's uh, you know, adapt itself through generations, and how, you know, it also influenced how, like, parenting. So some of the things that we were taught as children, for example, I would go out with my mom and just knowing that I can't leave my mom's side, I had to stick there right next to her, as opposed to just being freely to go and explore the local surrounding around me, making me feel like there is, you know, constant threat, as opposed to feeling safe and
Yeah.
nurtured
Yeah.
within the environment that I was in. Um, so it's like the more I get to understand my story about what's happened, how it's
Yeah.
impacted us, and how it is still impacting us today, that's when I am able to try now and differentiate between how things have impacted me to become and who I truly am. So this is part of the work I've done through being sexually abused as a child myself. And knowing that, you know, the more I educated myself about the impact of sexual abuse, I was then able to identify certain characteristics of myself. You know, not because I'm promiscuous, it doesn't mean that's me. That's just what I've become as a result of.
Yeah.
Not because, you know, I don't trust men. It doesn't mean that, you know, I've got, you know, a strong hatred, a genuine, organic, strong hatred towards men. This is part of the impact of the situation upon me. So I can then basically start to scale back impacts from who I truly am. Um, and then the question then posed, so who are you?
Well, the thing is, we are
And the
not our
moment for
past.
me, we're not our past, but the past have a way of, um, you know, the way I see it, really, the impact from it, it's like sitting in our subconscious. It's like a blind man sitting in our subconscious, driving us about. Or a blind woman, doesn't have to be a man, but somebody sitting in our subconscious, just driving us about. We're prone to so much accidents, and we don't know why. We can't
Exactly.
process and understand and make sense of things. But the moment we kind of stop for a moment and bring it to our conscious mind and start to question things. Why am I doing this? Why is this happening? You then can take a moment to start to understand the way how things have been impacting you to become, rather than who you truly are. And for a lot of us, including myself, I did not know the answer to that question. Once you scale all of those impacts and responsibilities back, I didn't know what was left or who was left. And the journey then to start to really get to know myself, that's where the love came from for myself. And as you said, Shazanne, about looking in the mirror, speaking to yourself, like, I remember when the first time somebody says to me, look in the mirror and have a conversation with, no, when was the last time you look in your mirror at yourself? And I thought, I always look in the mirror at myself. I look at my bum, I look at my chest, I look at my sideways. And they're like, no, just really look into your soul through your eyes in the mirror.
Exactly.
And I thought, I've never done that before. And I made that a mission to try it. And that was extremely powerful in itself, because I then started to see myself through the eyes that have been seeing myself through my subconscious. So I was still seeing myself as this helpless little girl. And that was impacting a lot of the decisions I was making and how I was seeing myself and seeing other people. But that was through the subconscious eyes, and that's what I was able to channel through by looking in the mirror. And by
Exactly.
becoming aware of it, I could then, start to unfold things and make a difference. And through positive affirmation,
Yeah.
meditation,
Yeah.
these are some of the tools that then become so handy in, getting to know who you are and loving yourself for who you truly are. But I definitely believe the journey starts with understanding your history.
Yeah, because it's easy to say you're not your past, but you're still running on your subconscious programming, and that is from your childhood programming. So if you don't know that, you will be making decisions or sabotaging yourself and wondering why you keep, playing out the
Bumping
same
up
things
against those
over and
same
over
things.
again.
Yeah.
So if you don't go into your past or go into your subconscious mind to find out what your programming is, you won't be able to change it, and then you'll just keep getting the same results. So it is important to know our history, know how we're programmed subconsciously in order to change it if it's not working for you.
But the thing about your past, I think, is that, look, your history is important. And then, like, it's very important to go and deal with your past and go back to it so you can really see it in its form and see who you've become from it. But when I say you are not your past. What I mean is you are not the sum total of your past. Therefore, we have a choice. You know, once we have the awareness, once we are in a position to observe ourselves doing what we're doing, we're in a position now to support ourselves, to strengthen our conversation around who we are, what we're about. You know, I know from me inside of my journey, when I first came into my consciousness and how I had my own personal self-love experience was through childbirth. I was kind of, you know, just, I suppose, coasting life. Yeah, when I first came into my, you know, my background was in performing arts previously. You know, I was out there doing my thing, and there was no purpose. This was the thing for me. There was no purpose. I mean, I could make money, but there was no purpose. And I suppose my journey came about, and it's what, you know, motivated me and inspired my purpose as a doula and, you know, childbirth activist, is to, you know, really look at, okay, you know, when I was carrying my child, I know that when I carried my child, it was my first pregnancy, and I was very much actually petrified of childbirth, absolutely petrified. I knew I just came into my consciousness maybe months before. I then got pregnant, and I was like, okay, what now? That question. And then, you know, I knew I always wanted to be a mother. Of course, like my past and my looking at my childhood and the things that took place in my childhood, I knew the kind of mother I wanted to be. It was already imprinted, though I was not the woman that I wanted to be at the time. I knew the kind of mother to be at the time. And in fact, I would more say that my womanhood who came through my motherhood. Yeah, I was not a woman before that. All the female parts, but I was not a woman. And then and then what happened for me was a rebirth, if you like, for me. Yeah, spiritually, I was in tune. I knew that baby inside out. I could see its vision, I could see its life, to the point where my son now wants to go and be an MP. He's a leader. I knew who I was bringing into the world. That was my revelation. And even though I was petrified, some higher self, I would say then, yeah, if we're talking about the higher and lower self, the higher self was, this is your path, this is your mission. And it was very much a channeling for me when I was carrying my son. You know, it was like I was definitely carrying like an incarnated being. That's all I can put it down to. Yeah. So for me, then going into the physical, it was literally like two different beings, my spiritual being and my physical being. You know, my physical being's petrified, scared of childbirth, watching videos, don't want to watch videos. Absolutely, like I look at a video, I'm going to cry. Yeah. And to the point where I actually tell women now, don't actually watch videos when you're, unless it's something like orgasmic birth, don't watch it. Yeah. But I would say the thing now, what I had at that time was, you know, something shifted in me. And I was now in a position where, you know, when I went into labor, though I was petrified, again, my spirit shifted, and I was doing this birth, you know, to 8 centimeters on my own, pain-free. The whole experience became pain-free. And that was, I suppose, my opening to self-love and loving me as a woman and loving me as a mother. Because I think sometimes we forget, you know, once we have the title of mother or the title of wife or the title of partner, there can be a lot of layers and a lot of loss. So yes, we're dealing with things like the past and the importance of who we are bringing into our relationships, you know, because that person is coming in with his past, that person is coming in with her past, and you're bringing your parents and you and what you've been raised with into that relationship. And it's about how you kind of synergize, and, you know, things like acceptance, things like, you know, self-care, so things like self-care for, you know, ourselves inside of a relationship, it becomes important. But going back to that, the childbirth experience, it meant then for me, it was a rebirth inside of myself, and it allowed me to learn to give of that. You know, I became purposeful. I wanted to give this experience, I wanted to give back to other women, hence I became a doula. You know, supporting women who were vulnerable at one point, you know, befriending, you know, vulnerable women for a charity, and then going into that and really kind of defining myself, you know, inside of who I am as a woman and also as a mother, and being able to marry those two in the self-love. I had to now become who I wanted other women to become. Yeah. And that's not to say I don't make mistakes, and that's not to say that I don't slip and slide and fall. You know, I'm human. Yeah. But it's the working towards always being that woman, always being that woman, always being that woman.
Exactly.
And not because you're trying, because that's who you want to be and that's who you know yourself to be.
Yeah, in terms of
Go
the
ahead.
slip and fall, sometimes we feel like once we've learned how to do something, it means that we will always do it and we will always do it perfect. But for me, what I have to be mindful of is that I've spent years of being programmed in a certain way. So even if now my eyes are open to how things should be, all the impact of the years of programming still exist. And it's the repetitive behavior that will overcome the impact of the negative programming over those years. So, say, for example, me and my son, I'm from a background where you do something, you know, you step out of line or whatever, and you just get the look. You get the look, and that should be enough to kind of tell you, you know what I mean, like, stop what you're doing, you're going to get in trouble. You continue, then you know, the beats will follow. And I vividly recall a number of times getting beats and actually didn't know what I did wrong. So for me, in terms of understanding, loving myself, and my son is a part of me. So how I show him love is how he's gonna learn love for himself and be able to show other people how to love him. So how that reflects for me is that if he does something wrong, my first thing is about talking it through and ensuring that, you know, based on his level of understanding, he understands what it is that he's doing wrong, what that's actually expected from him, and if the similar situation should arise, what, you know, he'll be expected to do. And only after I realized that, yeah, he actually knows all of this and he's still messing about, I may take it that step further. But it's just sometimes as a parent, you guys know, you're all mothers here. It can get so overwhelming and so stressful, and this is where the default mode will just slip back in. And you know, based on how I was brought up. So if my child come and do something, I may give him that look instead of the actual process, the more positive process that I'm trying to implement. Sometimes the default mode just slips back in, but it's that being aware of it. As with everything, when you're trying to do something new for the first time, you may slip back into that default mode. But like I said, it's just that being aware and yeah, actively trying to be better, you know, the next day and the next day. There is this meme that I'm not in competition with anybody apart from being a better me today than I was yesterday. And I felt that was very relevant in terms of what we're saying now. You know, it's definitely about aiming to be our better selves and developing ourselves in different ways, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
Definitely.
But
Listen,
what was
I
that?
would like to just throw in a little question just to change up the tack quickly. Because again, you know, we talked about slavery and the impacts of those past experiences and such. But one of the key factors that I like to remind people about when it comes to relationships and it comes to family, that during slavery and these times here, and again, our family structure, moral system, and relationships were actually stronger than they are now. So between you lot, starting with Shazam, do you want to talk about the modern day trappings that are the the natural enemy to that, having that self-love?
Yeah.
that as black sisters face within a relationship based in the modern day, whether it's the working, going on that, because obviously, as I said, that's the invert to our past, that under certain adversities, we were actually stronger. We did know ourselves. So what modern day erosion patterns have happened to cause this problem nowadays, in your opinion?
That's a good point you just made there, Richie, because today there's a lot of, it's like, I call it psychological warfare through the media, through the music that the youngsters are listening to now. There's a lot of subliminal programming in the music, which is what is causing them to see themselves in a negative light, to look at even black women in a negative light, glorifying drugs and crime, and then for women looking in the newspapers and magazines and seeing this false ideology of what beauty is. And then there's this covert operation to keep the black man and woman apart. So demonizing the black man and demonizing the black woman, to me, it's like a whole covert operation to keep the black man and woman apart by degrading black women and destroying the image of the strong black man, so that the woman doesn't see him as what he's meant to be, the protector and the provider, and the men are not seeing the women as they should be. They see them as, well, whatever. So it's mainly through the media and music that the youngsters are listening to nowadays, and things will, it's coming in all different directions through all of our senses, eyes, ears, so if we're constantly just seeing negative images of ourselves, and we're not getting positive affirmations in the home or wherever we reside, whether it's church or within our community, then we're going to just develop a poor self-image, which is what has happened to a lot of us now. We're believing the lies that has been perpetuated through the media about ourselves. We don't see, for instance, our history. We're just told that we were just slaves, and that's not true. We had a very rich history before slavery. So unless we find out all this information for ourselves, this is what helped me develop my confidence and self-esteem, was when I realized that, oh, wow, we have a rich history. We're from royalty, actually. At least I know that for myself. So when you know yourself and you know your history, not just slavery, obviously, then you will develop high self-esteem. Yeah.
And I mean, I personally had my DNA tested some years ago and found out, the different places that I had come from in terms of the Niger region, whether it's Saudi, Morocco, Senegal, Mauritania, all of those things made me understand a little bit more. And it talks about the tribes, the Shongai tribes that my DNA is from. For me, I can certainly say that help to bridge the gap. And I think, if people look at those kinds of, and go diligently into looking into things like that, I think that can certainly make a difference to, conversations that you have with yourself about that and bridging the gap. I think the other thing that is, if you're looking at modern day implications, I would say, emasculating the black man and masculinizing the black woman, those are really, dangerous spaces to step in. We are not, as a woman who works with families and women so closely, just to breastfeed in public now has become frowned upon. And if you look at the nature of that, it really teaches women, that something's wrong with breastfeeding. psychologically impacts a woman. So a woman can think, you know, she's already worried about whether she can breastfeed or not, which never really was something that was, you know, our mothers never talked about, oh, I couldn't breastfeed. Very rarely do you hear that story about, oh, I struggled to breastfeed when if they chose to breastfeed. Now it is, you know, it's like a, you know, military operation. And I don't think we have to take that lightly. There's, you know, books about it, the politics of childbirth, the politics of breastfeeding. There are, you know, there are lots of subtleties that we think, okay, you know, they're normal. We've normalized a lot of things, thinking that, you know, this is the way it is. And again, if we're looking at our history and we're looking at some of the, you know, some of even our traditions, even if, you know, our family traditions, things we learned, certain things we learned from our elders, you know, we cannot, you know, take away from everything that our elders are teaching us. They say, like, when an elder passes away, you know, a library goes with them. And I think that's a very serious statement, because it really states that how much we need to draw from our, you know, elders before they pass. I think, you know, not, you know, there is a concerted effort, you know, that they're learning through school, whether it's in PSHE, where they're learning about their young people learning about their rights, so they can come home and tell you what their rights are, take away the rights from the parents, so that you have no control of your children. Disciplining your children is a form of love. Let's say that right now. Yeah. So I think it's really important that, you know, we really do have to reclaim ourselves as people. You know, knowing ourselves is important, and then get into a place where we can actually make a difference and do something with that, because we cannot be at the mercy of, you know, the next wave of I suppose, indoctrination that our children are going to be up against. Yeah, we have to be ahead. So I suppose, you know, being informed is really important. I think women knowing, you know, their who they are at their source and who they are at their essence, and men knowing who they are at their source and who they are at their essence. You know, there is a duality, you know, and the power of that duality together, and how a relationship, you know, one doesn't belong without the other. So it's so important that we, you know, we look at each other when we're looking at a relationship. We're looking at each other, we're coming in as whole beings, coming as a whole being, and then we are creating a better version of ourselves with that person. That the relationship has to have purpose. People are coming into relationships willy-nilly and not really looking at what the purpose is, what the legacy is, what are we focusing on, what do we want to create, what power do we have, what strengths do we have, what weaknesses do we have, how do we complement each other. You know, are you my complementary opposite? You know, what do I bring to the table? What do you bring? There's too many what you call situationships taking place in society, especially where you have a lot of social media output, which isn't in its, you know, rightful place at different times, where people are, you know, you've got might, you know, allow for people to have affairs and all sorts of things. You know, the morals and the values have also disappeared with that. So I think I can definitely see how all of that shows up right now, and we, you know, how we need to take those things on one by one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with both of you ladies. For me personally, I definitely believe that once we become more aware, then how we therefore live our lives is key to helping others um, to see that love within us and basically wanting that for themselves as well. Like, for example, by me cutting my hair, that was a key statement within myself that I know that it was about, I don't need to, you know, have the weave. I don't need the fake nails. I don't need the lashes. I don't need any of that to feel beautiful. Because if I can't be beautiful within myself, then none of these things matter. And I know that I've had a number of people that's come up to me, and even one particular young lady that ended up cutting her hair as well, because she felt that she really wanted to before, but she just never felt she had the confidence to. But seeing my transformation, she was able to do that for herself, and she did ended up cutting her hair, and she looked so beautiful. But in terms of how we show love to not just to ourselves, but to each other around us, it can help um, to build that relationship, not just in a man and woman format, but in a friends format, in a family format. Um, yeah, I would definitely say that. But then it poses the question, I suppose, Shazanne, where it has been asked before. So if somebody doesn't go natural, does that mean they don't love themselves?
Not at all. Not at all. That's what I'm saying, that those things, they do have their place, you know. But if you're relying on those things to be, some women cannot leave the house without their makeup on, you know, or they would feel ugly if they didn't have a weave. That is when you know you have an issue.
And not
Pardon?
even that as well. It's
Yeah.
also from guys in the past as well, where I know for a fact that there are guys out there that won't date a girl with weave, and there's guys out there that won't date a girl with her natural hair because he prefers the long the long hair on the shoulder. So it impacts the men as well.
Yeah, because again, they're buying into the media's idea of what beauty is. So they see that a black woman with natural hair, she's not beautiful because she doesn't look like how the media has said she should look, which is to have the long flowing hair, you know, the light skin or whatever. So again, that's why you've probably seen the videos of black men saying that they wouldn't date a dark skinned woman.
Yep.
Whereas if they knew what melanin was, you know, and knew the power of the dark-skinned woman. See, with this covert operation that's going on, these people plan like hundreds of years in advance. So the operation was to get and I think it was easier to get the black man to not, well, to despise the black woman, because even today, the black women, you see, they're still fighting that it's been a long time for the black woman to now say, okay, well, because the men don't want us, there's so many dark-skinned women left on the shelf because the men are only going for light-skinned women. So there's so many dark-skinned women now left on the shelf. They've been made to feel like they're ugly because they're dark. And now, who's scooping them up? The white men. You know, so this is a covert operation that has happened over many, many years. Get the men to want white women or mixed race women or any other woman but the black woman, the dark black woman, because she has the most melanin. And if from writing my book, I had to do a lot of research, but I also channeled a lot of information. So there was one part of the book where we were talking about the yoni and the womb and rituals that we can perform as black men and women. And the more melanin you have, I just think the more powerful you are in terms of performing these rituals. So these white men are now scooping up all these dark-skinned black women that have been left on the shelf. So it was
can I just say though, I just think about that because, you know, for light-skinned women, I don't think. I mean, I'll speak to black women because there's a conversation about light skin and dark skin. And when a man is, I think it's true to say the darker you are, you're more connected to being able to perform these rituals. Because if your melanin is toxic,
the more melanin you have, the more melanin you have.
But then if you have toxic melanin, if your melanin is toxic, yeah, whatever you're putting into your body, it's not, you either channel
that
or
as
you
well.
don't. Yeah, so I think that's important to state for the rest of the planet. Yeah, I think that's important because I don't think it could generalize like that. I think I think I think when it comes to relationship, as much as people talk about, okay, the light-skinned woman, you know, and the black, the
I was talking
dark-skinned
about the
woman.
operation that has happened in
No,
terms of, yeah.
And that's cool, and that's cool. But then also it's a case of, I see an operation. I see them even as a woman of fairer hue. Then I see an operation. I might see a different operation, but I see an operation. I see an operation towards black women. Full stop. You know, I can go out. I'm not assuming that I'm going to be a person who's going to be checked on or by checked out just because I'm a person who's of color. When you are also a woman of consciousness as well, yeah. One of the things that I say, you know, one of the impacts is dark skin conversation, but then there's also your consciousness and, you know, wanting the truth. And look, you started the conversation about women being, you know, like co-creators with God then, yeah. And that's who we are as women. And when you know that about yourself, let's take, you know, the hue out. When we know that about ourselves, yeah, that we're the co-creators of God, if we're talking about self-love and healing of relationships in this conversation, then it makes sense that we understand that our relationship with ourselves, sometimes the more I find personally, the more I know myself, the more disconnected I can be from that, you know, from the men in my community. Yeah. Because the more you are growing, the more you are ascending, the more you are developing, it becomes a narrow window of opportunity when you know yourself. You're even down to your immediate circle, your family, your friends. And I think there's a construct, you know, there's a bigger construct that allows for the shadism conversation, because I experience shadism in my own family. Yeah, I'm considered the darker hue in my family. Yeah, everyone is lighter than me. So in my family, you know, my nose needed to be straighter, my eyes needed to be like this, my hair needed to be more curly. There's many layers of this, and there's a lot of this is colonialization, regardless of, you know, if you come from a family which is where it's dark or where it's light. It goes on, and it goes on quite deeply. It's really ingrained, and you know, we've got to get to a point where we can, you know, heal ourselves and heal from that, and really look into our, you know, how divine we're going to be, how much growth we're going to do, and how much we can bring our, if we're talking about relationships, bring our men on board. If we're talking about women being at the center of it, and the teachers and the healers of today and tomorrow, how much we have to be responsible for as women to, you know, like they're saying, that saying that says, "Oh, nation can rise no higher than woman." We need to be looking from on some level as to the depth of how much growth and how much our community are going to function from who we are.
Shazanne, did you finish off with your point? Thank you, sister. But did you finish off with your point, Shazanne?
Oh, I was just going to interject something quickly, sisters. Yeah, just before we go back to Shazanne. I think the thing about the melanin conversation, yeah, and the different hues, the science behind the darker skin, yeah, is there as far as the potential, the electric potential that's stored within the darker hue is supposedly scientifically greater. But what we're finding through the DNA mix, through different bloodlines,
the food
coming,
yeah,
that's it, foods that we're coming across people who are darker hue, but they have a lot
no
of
power
Caucasian in them, they have a lot of different impurities in them. So again, I think the hue conversation can only be had in certain arenas of people, as far as everyone has to understand some of these principles so there is no misunderstanding. Because again, if you speak about these things in the presence of certain people, they can take it for this misconstrued situation where now it becomes more of a divide and conquer type situation, rather than understanding that, again, our enemies, they are natural enemies, understand these properties
exactly,
and also understand that we carry every phenotype, meaning that every look that you see out here, whether you're Chinese, white, Asian, whatever, we already have that look stored within our own databanks. So that's important to realize and understand, and lessen on the confusion of self-hate, or thinking, you know, I'm lesser because I am not as dark, or I am more because I am dark, or I'm lesser because my nose looks a certain way, or my lips are thinner than the next. This is where we got to get off of that and understand the true science of the black male and female, and that we carry in the genetic code and phenotypes for the planet. So if you take that and bring that into an all-encompassing field, then you start to understand that there can be no divide and conquer. There can only be an overview that of your position on the planet and in that history, genetic, as well as obviously people walking around, living, breathing, building cities, civilizations, history. Sister Shazam, though, let me get back to you on what you was about to say. Sorry about that. I just wanted to...
No, thank you very much for elaborating on my earlier point, actually. So yeah, there is a need for the black man and the woman to really know themselves. So that will develop self-love when you understand who you are as a black man and woman. That will help raise your level of self-esteem. It will help you really appreciate your counterpart. As a black man, the black woman is your counterpart, and vice versa. So when we truly know ourselves and know our history, not just slavery, but our rich history, we will really develop self-love, not just for ourselves, but for each other, because it's about racial pride as well, not just self-love, but love for our people. There's a lot of self-hate within ourselves, but also for each other. But by understanding who you are as a black man and a black woman, you will develop self-love, self-pride, and racial pride, because that, I think, is what is lacking right now. But having said that, I also do see a movement where we are beginning to know and love ourselves. And what's most important is that we are raising our children differently. You know, our children are not being programmed the way that a lot of us were programmed. So, and that, for me, that is the most important thing, is the next generation, making sure that they are not psychologically damaged like many of us were. So I find that our generation are not raising our children the way we were raised. Like, for instance, many of us are not beating our children mercilessly like we were beaten, you know, or speaking to them negatively, because that is part of the programming that was handed down from one generation to the next. So we're not passing that down to the next generation anymore, because we've looked at the history, and our parents weren't looking at that history. You know, they were just in this Christianity or whatever. We're looking at the history and we're healing ourselves from it, so that the next generation are not having to go through what we went through. And the reason a lot of our youngsters today are lost and don't know who they are and are killing each other is because one, they are products of children themselves. So a lot of young people are having children and they have no guidance themselves. So the children of those children are the ones that are kind of left to fend for themselves on the street. And they're listening to this music, which is corrupting their minds. They're eating junk food, which is destroying the cells in their body. And then they're watching programs which are, again, programming their subconscious mind for failure, for self-hate. So there is a lot of work to be done in our community with the youngsters. But I think what's most important is that the next generation that are being born are programmed right in the first place. some people are lost and they cannot be helped, or they don't even want to be helped. But my work is more around mothers or parents who are raising the next generation, so that those children are raised with a strong mind, because it's all about the mind. This is what it's all about, mind control going on. So if the children are raised with a strong mind, it's like, was it Frederick Douglass said that it's easier to raise strong children than to mend broken adults. And I know firsthand how difficult it has been for me to reprogram my mind for success, from failure to success, from thinking negatively about myself to feeling positively, and now doing the work that I'm doing to help my community to heal. Why not just raise the children with a strong mindset in the first place, so we're not having to go through this journey of self-healing, which a lot of us are now going through?
I do want to touch on the children's side of things, and the programming and the programs that they watch. It seems to be starting from quite young. And when I say quite young, younger than we can even imagine, or we're even ready to adapt our teachings for our children. So a typical example is my son, he's going to be 5 next week. And last year, he turned to me and says, Mum, so he's 4 right now, and this was what, last year. He said to me, Mum, I don't want to be black. I want to be white and beautiful. Now, by that point, I've recently come into my consciousness, or my awareness, I would like to say, and I'm one of those mothers. Yeah, I'm going to teach my child all about himself and his identity and about his history, but at the same time, I thought that was way too young. I actually thought that. Until I got that massive sort of wake up call, and I realized that, okay, like I needed to be a lot more on top of the game, and proceed with adapting the teachings to show my son who he really is. And I'm glad to see a lot of what I'm teaching him is taking effect. Like he will actually say to me now, Mom, I'm black and I love it. And just to hear him flip it around in such a positive way, um, you know, obviously it gives a massive sense of empowerment, but also, you can see a lot of what you're doing is working. But just to kind of step back, when my son said that to me, as you can imagine, I was like so overwhelmed with emotions and shock. And I called up a number of my friends because they've got young children as well. And it was quite common around that age, around the 3, 4, 5. It's like as soon as they can talk, or maybe even before they can talk, the programming begins. And my friends who shared their stories, they've got daughters, and it's a case where their daughters had hand them back the black doll because that's not what they saw on TV, or not what their friends have. And it's not like the hair is tricky to comb, and for all these reasons, you know uh, an image that is meant to look like you. The Bible speaks about how God makes us in his own image, and that shows his love for us. But an image that's meant to look like us, whether it's a doll or another person, we fail to be able um, to see the love in that person because of the fact that we fail to see the love in ourselves. But I just wanted to sort of highlight that it goes way back to, to our babies, I might say. So by the point they grow up, our children grow up and be even a bit older, even in their uh, early teens, the sense of identity issues that they would have been going through, um, to the point where leads to issues at school and them even start hurting themselves. But it's taken years and years of toll on them. Have you guys noticed that yourselves as well?
I suppose, well, for my children, I think it's been very different. I haven't had the experience of them coming home with that. I suppose I, pumped it into their neck, consciousness. They were born into it, so they kind of got it shoved down their throat. Yeah. And I'm
My
proud.
sister's son is like that. He was born into the consciousness, so she had a completely different story than what I'm
I think
telling.
it makes a difference. I mean, we all went through that as children in some point, thinking this. I went to a private school when I was 4, straw hat, the whole thing. And, I remember saying to my grandmother walking home one day, saying, that I think I said to her that I wanted to be white. And she said, why? And she said, I said, because they got treated better. Yeah. And I was 4. And when I look back on that and think, gosh, you know what? How can I at 4? I mean, I was the only black girl in my class. And and for me at the time, it was like, how can I have felt all of that? Like, that is quite a strong emotion to have. So I suppose for me, I was lucky when I suppose when I was 10, my mum sat down with me and had me read the speech of William Lynch, 1712, which then allowed me as a 10-year-old to really hold on a minute. With that moment, in fact, was a life changer, because that was the moment where I knew I must be conscious. Until I had children or close to having children, I knew it then. And I think for me, my children have grown in. I haven't had that conversation with them where they have come home with that, because they had it in the neck. I believe, the way I raise children, I believe in, planting seeds and planting as many seeds as you can. And, I remember sitting with an elder said to me, it only takes one. And, she meant teaching one of your children. I had 3 boys, so teaching one of them and then the rest will follow. But I suppose, enhance that, because I would say, for my 3 sons, I would say teaching one, like, I know that I can teach one who's a natural leader. I believe in raising my children on their learning style. That's the first thing. Yeah. I think, if you raise all your children the same, one is going to fall through the net. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think raising them as they learn, whether they're a kinesthetic learner, visual learner, or auditory learner, or a combination of them, knowing your children makes you teach them according to who they are and who they're being, looking at their strengths, from a very, very, very young age. I remember going into an Asian shop and this little boy was playing with building bricks, and the Asian man, I was already doing this with my children, but it was great to hear it when he said, oh, my son, plays with Lego, and, now we're pushing him towards architecture. The boy was about 4. It's about vision. It's about a mission for your children. If your children don't have a vision and mission, if you don't notice particular things, this age, when you talked about like the formative years and that period and that window between 0 and 7, they say, take a boy at 7 and I'll show you the man. Yeah. If we don't put those things in at that correct age, if we don't formulate them or help to formulate them, and if you've come into your consciousness, say, late, it means that you've got to do even more work, obviously, as you know, because you're now like, okay, it's catching up with what he didn't learn earlier. And you'll see it if you go on, when you go on to have adult children, you'll see your consciousness through them. It'll be easy. But I think it's very, I think your children show up who also we are at the time when they get a bit older as well. And they show they're constantly showing us where we need to grow, where we need to learn, where we need to develop. I think it's parenting in itself is a whole other conversation, around loving ourselves and loving our children. I think it's a big conversation and maybe a different show. Certainly, I think it's blessed thus far that those conversations haven't been had in my household, and my boys are 17, 7 and 3. I don't know. What about you, CEZANNE?
Yeah, well, as you know, I have 3 sons as well. And when I was raising the 2 older sons, I was still a Christian. But I didn't have a model. I didn't have a role model to raise my sons by. All I knew is that I didn't want to raise my children the way I was raised. So a lot of how I raised my children was intuitive, you know, really just relying on my higher self, or I might say God, because I was a Christian at the time. And just showing them as much love as possible, because I wasn't shown love. I wasn't hugged, kissed, you know, so told I love you as a child. So I made sure that I did that with my children. And
yeah, I do that loads.
yeah, and as a result, I found that they haven't grown up with the issues that I had as a child. You know, didn't know who they were, didn't love themselves. They have very high self-esteem, and I say to them, if I didn't give you anything else, you know, I've given you that, and that is what is going to get you through life, because having low self-esteem or lacking self-love is what holds a lot of us back.
It not just holds us back, it also, in terms of how we view things, how we view the world, how we view people around us, it does hugely affects that, to the point where we can put ourselves in vulnerable situation, or we can end up making wrong choices in relationships. We could end up getting into a relationship for the wrong reasons. I know, again, going back to being promiscuous, I would get into stuff and not feeling any value for myself, or not feeling any value to the act that I'm getting into. I'm doing it for other reasons. But in terms of loving yourself, how would you say then that you can benefit from that in terms of a sustainable, healthy relationship?
Yes, well, if you don't love yourself and someone else is trying to affirm your love or your beauty, but you don't see it in yourself, you'll never be able to accept that love. You'll never be able to accept those positive affirmations. So you'll I mean, I'm thinking about somebody who I know that was married for like 10 years, and he said that in the book. I interviewed him for my other book, How to Get the Ring on Your Finger, and he was saying that if you don't feel good about yourself, no matter what anybody else says to you about you, you won't be able to receive it, because you don't feel that way about yourself. No one can change the way you feel about yourself. You have to do that yourself. So again, it goes back to the positive affirmations, constantly talking to yourself, you know, and reprogramming your own mind, you know, because don't forget the imprint period is 0 to 7. So most of how you feel about yourself, or what you think about yourself, was what was programmed in you as a child. So you have to do that work of reprogramming your subconscious mind, you know. Like, for instance, recently it was my birthday, and I just spent the whole day indoors, you know, and looking in the mirror and talking to myself. And a girlfriend phoned me up that evening, and she said, "Oh, so how did you spend your birthday?" And I said, "Oh, I spent it I just really enjoyed my own company. I was just looking in the mirror, telling myself how much I love you, you know." And she was like, "Oh, I've never heard anyone. I'm going to try that, you know." And it really does make a difference, you know. So you have to reaffirm to yourself who you are, how you feel about yourself, and then you'll find that other people, because one thing I've noticed as well is that the affirmations that I speak about myself, or I say to myself, I find other people then say it to me, you know. I don't know how that works, but
What are
it
some
does.
of those affirmations? You want to share them?
No, no, not really. Yeah, like for
Ladies,
instance, I used to say, you know, before I started writing, I used to affirm to myself, I am a prolific writer, I am a brilliant and successful artist. These are affirmations that I used before I started, or I am blocked as a writer and an artist. So those affirmations that I used to help myself to unblock as a writer and an artist. So I would say I'm a brilliant and successful artist, I'm a prolific writer, I'm a first class performer, or things like that. And I'll have people then tell me, "Oh, wow, you're a brilliant artist, Shazanne. You're a prolific writer," or things like that. So I find that that's why I say that however you feel about yourself, it's going to be reflected back to you.
Yeah, they do say, how whatever energy that you're harboring, whatever, like you said, reflection you have of yourself, that's what you then kind of seek out in other people and attract back to
Yeah.
you. Yeah. But did you have something to comment on this? Was it Richie?
No, well, I'm enjoying the conversation. I want to just say thank you to everyone that's been tuning in so far, writing their comments in the chat. Terry, though, is going to come on. He's going to just talk about a couple adverts, run a flyer, and then you can get back in and give your final thoughts and deal with healing. Because I really want to hear about the interactions of healing within the dynamics of a relationship as well. Like, how do you feel best to communicate with your partner if you feel there's a problem, if you need that pick me up? Because again, I had an interesting conversation today with a doctor, a brother who's going to be gracing the show as well soon, and he was making a point that there's a lot of symbolism going on with romance and sex and dating. So, within the courtship process and in a relationship, how do you go about communicating that you need healing? How would you as sisters say to men that is best to communicate that? But as I said, keep that in your brain computers for now. Terry, you there, brother? Riggs. Unblock your mic, son. Unblock your mic. Can you hear us? You're muted, bruv. We can see the kings and queens flyer. Listen, sisters, talk on this event here. Let the people know, because this is the point of some of these shows leading up to this event here. So just describe what the people are seeing here on the screen for us, sisters.
I'm just doing the ad.
Anybody, come on, this is all dead.
Oh, okay, all right. So, all right, well, where are we at now? Okay, we're doing the advert for the event. Okay, so we have an event coming up on the 16th December at the Rock Island Cafe, and that's Old Kent Road. And it'll be a dinner and dance event, but it will also be an event that will celebrate the success of Kings and Queens, celebrate relationship in the community. We're also going to be launching our dating site as well, so that's an opportunity for people to get to know each other online, and it's constructed in a way where it's the questions that are posed are supported for you to know yourself, and it's an awareness, if you like, barometer. And so the event is going to be a beautiful dinner and dance, so come down to the event, and really it's an opportunity for us to get to know who's around us in Kings and Queens, who's supporting Kings and Queens, and we're looking at this event to be an opportunity to showcase a little bit about what we do and talk from where we're at. I mean, Tamar, you want to carry on?
Nothing more to say? All right, listen.
Well, can I mention the self-love retreat?
No, you can't. Go ahead. Go ahead, my dear, go ahead. Yeah, T, we can hear you, my dear.
They both seem to. Are they there? They both seem to have gone.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
there.
okay.
I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. Okay. Let's look at the event. So obviously, it's for those who can see, it's 320 Old Kent Road. Obviously, we're going to look at having guest speakers, performers, success stories, as the flyer says. Again, this is an anniversary and a relaunch dinner. So, do, attend. It's from 7 till late. Wear something beautiful, make yourselves adorned in your beautiful attire, enjoy our celebration as a team and the success of Kings and Queens so far and what's to come.
Yeah, definitely. Wear something that you feel fantastic in. The idea really is to get us to feel fantastic about ourselves, about our relationships. We don't need anyone to tell us how horrible our relationships are. We know that, yes, it's a work in progress, but we also know that there are some fantastic relationships in our community. For example, I've got a cousin where they've been married for 30 years. And when I go to speak to them, they've told me they've never once argued.
I need to interview them for my next book.
Absolutely.
How to
They've
sustain your
never once
relationship.
argued. Now, the way the media would make it seem is like, 7 out of 10 of our relationship, that's up to 70% don't last. It
It's
feeds
a
us all
myth.
this negativity and all the reasons why we shouldn't unify as a black man and a black woman. Well, our anniversary event, what it aims to do is to highlight the positivity, share some of the success stories, counteract a lot of the negativity, and let us feel better about ourselves and about creating and sustaining relationships with each other. So yes, there will be dinner because of course, we've got to eat. There will be the success stories, but after all of that's happened, guess what? We'll be able to shake a leg or two. So again, it's all about the keeping good vibes or feeling good vibes, keeping it up. So definitely come and join us. It's on the 16th of December. Tickets are currently, early bird tickets are currently at £40 per person, or is it £75 per couple? And you get a 3-course Caribbean meal with that, as well as some drinks as well. So do check out our website, get your ticket in, spread the word. This is positivity within our community that we should actually be telling our friends, our family, and bring them along with you as well. And let's celebrate together. That's the key. So if you go to Kings and Queens United, the website is just at the bottom of the page on your right-hand corner, kingsandqueensunited.com. Go over to the event section and you'll be able to, check out our anniversary event, as well as we've got a singles event coming up on the 1st of December. So that's not this Friday coming, that's next Friday. Currently, women's tickets are on hold. We're trying to keep a healthy balance between our men and women. So what we're asking you guys to do, spread the word. Ask around, are there any black single man out there that is looking for a queen to build with? Because that is the key. We promote healthy and sustainable relationships, and our women are coming with the intention of wanting to find somebody to build, to grow, to evolve with. So are there any kings out there that is single and available next week, Friday? Again, check out our website, kingsandqueensunited.com. Both the singles event and the anniversary event is at the same place. So if you've been there before, you know where it is. If you haven't, then it's 320 Old Kent Road, SE1 5UE, and the place is called Rock Island Bar and Grill, right in front of the massive Tesco. You can't miss it.
Okay. Can you lot see the website of Shan's website?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, Shazanne, I want you to explain how people can get your book, as well as I'm going through your page.
Oh, yes, just visit journeyofaSister.com and you should be able to just order the book from there.
Okay. And
Yeah, you can
anything
get a signed copy for $9.99
as people
with
go to
free
your
delivery in
website,
the UK.
as people on your website, we can
Pardon?
see the book, we can see the art, we can see the poetry, and about you.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to talk about on your book, your art, and your poetry? And what events have you got?
Yes. Well, there's a couple of events coming up. So currently doing an exhibition where 3 of my paintings that are featured in my book are on display, the last 3 of the collection.
Is it on your website?
Probably on the events page. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's an exhibition which on Sunday, I'm doing the last event because I'm going to Gambia next week. So I'm doing the last event for this year.
Okay.
Where
so
I will be.
Event there?
I don't think I have put that one on there yet. I have to put it on tomorrow, but it will be on the events page tomorrow. So, because I just organised it today, actually. It's at Kata Kata, 132 Brixton Hill.
Yeah, from the 2nd to the 29th of November.
Yes. So the last day that I'm doing an event at Kata Kata is on this Sunday, the 26th of November, from 2 till 6 p.m. I'll be there. You can make me an offer on the originals, or I will also be doing prints of the art of my artwork, and also you'll be able to get a signed copy of the limited edition of my books, which have my artwork in color. So my artwork incorporates color therapy, and that is one of the ways of healing yourself, especially this time of the year. You know, when we don't get enough sunlight. Many of us suffer from seasonal affective disorder, which is a form of depression caused by lack of natural sunlight. And I healed myself from SAD when I painted my paintings. So I've been sharing that message that you can actually.
And can you talk about the Gambia?
Yeah, so the self-love retreat. We're doing the self-love retreat in the Gambia. So the dates are December the 17th to the 23rd. We've got dates in January, February, and March. So again, on journeyofassister.com, if you just type in self-love retreat.
I've got the page up. I've got the page up.
Yeah. So yeah, come and join us over there. We are doing 5 self-love workshops. 7 days in the sun. 5 days of workshops. You can do as much or as little as you want to, because it really is a holiday with workshops thrown, self-nurturing workshops thrown in. And my motto is as I heal myself, I heal others. So I'm not saying you need to be like me. We're all on this self-healing journey. So there's some workshops which I've intuitively devised, which we're going to be running. For instance, who I am. It's not who am I, it's who I am. So you're affirming to yourself who you are, using mirror work and affirmations. And there's also a technique which I wrote about in the book, How to Get the Ring on Your Finger, where you can record your affirmations on your phone. We're going to be doing all that as part of the retreat. There's a full day of pampering. So yeah, if you want to join me on the self-love retreat. Oh, sorry, Terry?
Yeah, I said we were going to talk about that a bit later on afterwards.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought we were rounding up. That's why.
No, I'm just doing the other.
Okay.
Never mind. Okay, now that you've heard two more informations of the kings and queens, and you've heard all about CEZANNE, we have another advert which we're explaining of tomorrow's show. Richie.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just put the event for tomorrow. Just give the people the information about what's going on tomorrow on the part 2.
This is the manifestation of thought. As you can see, this is part 2 on our shows with Samuel Benton. Bentar. Let's get
Bentar.
Yeah, let's get his name right, because he's not happy when we don't. So let's not disrespect it. But yeah, he's going to be going in. He's already laid down the foundation of different thought paths that he's going to be going into, as far as self-affirmations, you know, making your dreams and materializing your real life, everyday life, you know, goals, how to set goals for yourself and such. He's a successful actor. He's written a show that's been televised. You know, he's done a few things. He's definitely trying to be what he's about. So, yeah, interesting young brother, gracing us with a platform over the next good few weeks. We've got actually 5-6 parts to come. So this is part 2. So yeah, look out for that tomorrow. That will be on and popping again. Black Eyes TV bringing it.
Okay. So now I was saying now is that we should always back, buy back, be black, believe in black, always be black. I always say, like we have companies like Mama Sia that gives us the natural moringa all-rounder, the moringa gold, which we sell. We have the product creams, shea butter, pills, you name it. And then I always say, if you want any of this, you can actually go to number 10 Anqual Bean on Lay Road. Okay, and there you can get any type of products from books, creams, herbs, even events. And even on a Thursday, all day, we have what we call the quinoa man. He cooks the best food that you could ever have that melts in your mouth. So if you have the opportunity on a Thursday, make your way down to the 10 Adelaide Road, Anquel Bean. Or if you want to buy your books and products, again, in Brixton, you can go to Brixton Hill Pampanzi, which now sells you all different types of black products, from books to herbs to products, whatever you need or whatever helps you in your journey. And as well as that, he has got another store, which is a restaurant, which is Return to Eden. Then you have what we call the
Eat of Eden. It's called
Eat of Eden. Okay. Yeah. And you've got the Netta Vitel, who sells products, and he sells all the things that you need for your black journey. As well as you've got the what we call the Matt Hat Book Centre in Tottenham, High Road, not far from the police station. You have all different types of books, and they do quite a lot of venues. So
events.
They've got venue where they can do events, and as well as other things, because it's the Pan-African Centre. Okay. So, on the media front, Richie.
Like you.
Yeah.
As always, we just pick up all the other fellow black media out there. HMP TV, Talk with the Titans, Sarnetta TV, Black Magic, yeah, content over everything. Again, you have to support black media out here, because without us, where our story, our narrative will never be out there, our businesses will never be known. So again, support the channels, support us in every way, as far as liking the shows, subscribing. As far as my fellow media goes, you know, share your content, collaborate as much as possible. We have to create a network and create an industry where we can make some money like this as well, so it can be sustainable. As far as shout outs go, that's me on the Richter scale. So I'm happy now to go back to our sisters, unless you've got anything else to add, Terry.
Only if you want to buy any other books, as I said, like let's say, for instance, we've got the TC Carrier book, which is on sale, which will be on our website. That is coming very soon. And we'll have King Kevin's book on the website. And there is products coming in. We have what we call the Timeline, which is coming very soon. And we are going to be getting some new products from America, which one of our fellow work friends, who is called Sarah Garvey, who will be going to New York to document his documentary film, which if you go to our Timeline on YouTube, You can see everything about Sarah Garvey and what he does and what he's about. Even if you go to his page, he'll be coming back with a whole heap of stuff. So, as I said, that's it for me. Richie, you can kick it on with the women.
Ladies, I know you.
Yeah, repeat the question prior to the advert.
Yeah, I was saying, we was going in on the self-healing before.
And the healing of relationships you were talking about, right?
That's right. So again, as lady, as queens, how do you communicate best, or how do you feel is best for males and females to communicate when there is a problem, when there is some form of confidence building that needs to happen, when there needs to be that self-love shown? How best can a partner support you within that?
Well, look, I think what it comes down to, I think when it comes to relationships, it's a really delicate matter. Look, if two people are coming to meet each other, and I think it would take something. I think when we come into relationships, we have to think about getting support. I think, we have to understand that we come from a village, that we're interconnected beings. We can't look at a relationship and be, I'm an individual, and we bring that individuality into a relationship, and we can't. I think I spoke about it a little bit before, but when you come into a relationship, you have to be honest about your strengths and your weaknesses, your flaws, because like Shazanne was saying earlier, being who you are, being who you need to be, because that's what you want to attract, right? Spiritual beings having a human experience, therefore we're flawed, and I think, in our society right now, where we're looking at the instant gratification age, it's very easy to have relationships be disposable, and still at the same time we have to understand we're still, as much so much choice beings. And I think coming into a relationship, we have to be honest with ourselves and each other's and our character. It takes maturity to get into a relationship and say, look, you know what, I'm like this, or I'm a bit like that, or in an area of my life that I'm not that keen, to talk about, but you know what, I'm willing to talk about this. I'm willing to discuss those things. Again, trust is a massive. You've got to be able to, create trust quite quickly. Grow like a seed. Water it every day. It's really important. Then those conversations, from there, you can build conversations around, what your relationship's going to look like, what the legacy of a relationship's going to look like, what the vision for your relationship looks like. There's that a quote. And the quote comes from a book called Marriage 101, and it says, if you don't have the same vision, it ends in division, which ends in divorce. And I think you have to be able to look at the vision that you have, and that's not to say it won't change and that the course won't change, but it's also about navigating that together, riding the waves, dealing with people in their, not just at their best, but at their worst, dealing with the stresses, asking the right questions. How do you deal with stress? What do you do? How can I support you? Being supportive, being a helpmate to each other, knowing that you're coming in to be a helpmate to each other. Because if you're serious about a legacy, you'll be coming in with a vision, look at each other like, okay, you're a flawed being, I'm a flawed being. Okay, but you've got strengths and you've got strengths. And so what strengths can we work on and build upon, and what can we see that we can align with? And what weaknesses do we have that might be combined weaknesses? Because sometimes you can attract your weaknesses at the same time. Even if you're doing a lot of work on yourself, the weaknesses can still be the same. So you can look at your weaknesses and recognize it does take that. It does take self-awareness and be able to say, okay, you know what, and admit to yourself, hands up, I've got these flaws or these character flaws. And actually, 10 years from now, I won't really want to have them. meditation together is very important. You know, taking time to listen to your inner elder. 10 years from now, who will I be? What does my inner elder tell me about what I need to know right now, or how I need to be? Observing yourself doing what you're doing. Yes, you're in a relationship, but then on top of it, you're observing yourself doing what you're doing in the relationship. So you're not just like going where the wind takes you. You're navigating with an awareness. And then things like when it comes down to conflict, you know, there are like conflict rituals where you're sitting back to back on the floor, I think grounding yourself in the earth and sitting down back to back, where you know you're taking the heat out of eye contact with each other at that time, or the heat of emotions. And, you know, if 97% of your communication is in your body language, then it makes sense that just taking that heat out of a conversation by taking, you know, yourselves back to back and then listening to each other and still connecting, because you're touching, you're still connecting with each other at the same time. There is a, you know, there is a sense of ease in the conversation. It's not necessarily going to be easy what you might have to say, but it makes sense to have those kinds of conversations in that way. You know, you might, you know, use crystals inside of your relationship. You might use the elements inside of your relationship. You might give each other gifts inside of a relationship, but not gifts because it's somebody's birthday or it's Christmas or whatever season it might be today. Yeah. What's important is that, you know, it might be a flower, it might be a stone, it might be something that represents, it might be symbolic of your relationship, it might be symbolic of, you know, I think we have to be creative as well. I think the only way really also is, you know, being creative, you know, not being guided by what we've been given and been spoon fed. Oh, this is the way to do it. It's carving out your own version of the kind of relationship that you want. You have a say in how your relationship goes versus what everyone else thinks.
Oh, I agree with a lot of what you just said there, Mut. Personally, I have not been able to sustain a relationship longer than 3 years. So that's one reason why I'm interviewing Black couples who have been together, I should say Nubian couples, who have been together for at least 8 years for my next book, How to Sustain the Relationship, because I think a lot of us do give up on the relationship, you know, the minute it gets rough. You know, we haven't been taught how to sustain a relationship. So I have taken it upon myself to interview couples who have been able to sustain a relationship and ask them how to do it. And that's the only thing I can really say in terms of sustaining a relationship is just to treat the other person how you would want to be treated. And if you both go into the relationship with that attitude that I want to do for them, you know, or you're going to treat them how you want to be treated, then, and if you're both doing that for each other, you're both trying to do the best for each other, then the relationship should work, you know. But as I said, I personally haven't been able to sustain a relationship long term. So I am just interviewing couples who have done it for the next book, How to Sustain Your Relationship, because I know it's not easy. You can love that. So many of us, we still love that person, but we don't know what to do when things get rough. So we just end the relationship. And then you're pining and mourning for that person afterwards. But by then it's too late. There's so much damage been done. So we have to learn the techniques on what to do when the going gets rough.
100%. And that's where conflict resolution skills comes in very handy. But before I touch on that, one of my key phrases that I say is, it's through self-love that we will heal our people. So what that means for me is, the more I'm able to love myself, the more I'm going to want better for me and people that looks like me. The closer that gets to home, particularly, you know, in your own home, you generally is going to want a better life for you and your family. You know, as parents, we already say we want better life for our children. Um, but you know that also reflects itself in our home in general. Now, women currently, whatever events we go to, particularly self-development events, we know that there are predominantly more women there than our men. There's been lots of conversations around it, but what I wanted to draw upon at this moment is if our women are going out and developing ourselves, then when we go home and there is any form of conflict, um, we should be able to, and I'm not saying this in a pressurizing way on women, but just maybe something for us to kind of aim for, because we are Mother Nature. Um, you know, our men comes from us, our children come from us, so we nurture them as kids, and it's the ability to be able to nurture them even when they're still adults. And when we are in a relationship, the partner that we have, it's not our child, but we still have those nurturing skills within us. So if we are going out and we're learning and developing and educating ourselves, then the aim really should be to come home and educate and teach our men what we're learning, not in a way that's going to, you know, let them feel any less than a man, but drawing upon those natural nurturing skills. Um, and of course, if we need help in doing so, then we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help, because it is a very challenging journey, particularly where there's conflicts in the relationship. And I'm reflecting back on my own separation. Um, and had I not been aware of, you know, just generally wanting to learn about this or learn about that, or you know, just an interest for education or development. So my natural instincts, whenever I come across something that I don't know how to, as opposed to closing down and feeling like, oh my days, things can get really overwhelming, of course, but my natural instincts called upon doing research, understanding more, well, understanding better the situation I'm in, about relationships, about breakdown in relationships. What are some of the key things that causes breakdown in relationships, and how does people rescue themselves when there are breakdown in a relationships? And some of it was quite general, of course, but there were quite a few that I could reflect back to myself. For example, communication. We keep on hearing this word, but it is very key in maintaining, sustaining, and rescuing your relationship. Spending time together. These are what seems like basic things, but if we're not making time for each other, this journey we're talking about, this legacy, we develop different viewpoints of what this is meant to look like or feel like. Um, and this is where we potentially end up drifting apart. We feel less significant in the person's life. And who wants to be somewhere where they do not feel important? They feel devalued and unappreciated. So the less time we spend amongst ourselves, um, in terms of being in that relationship, the less we're getting to know our counterpart on their continued journey, and therefore the less we're able to have an impact. It's like, you know, a parent and a child. If the parent is not involved in that child's life, then how is that parent able to guide that child? Now, if we're not making time for ourselves as man and woman, how are we supposed to be able to positively impact the other person's journey? Because it also means we're not communicating with each other. So I am gonna put this out there on us, the women. Um, it's been said over and over and over again that we're the one mostly turning up to events, and that's not to you know, disregard any of our men that's well out there and developing themselves in so many different ways. But I'm looking at it from a general perspective. It's been said over and over again that it's us women that's at the event. So what are we doing at these events? What skills are we developing? Are we learning from that we can take back home and teach our partner. But again, it's the way that we may teach our partner. So yes, that nurturing side, but I think Sister Mut also spoke about the different learning styles. So that's maybe something you might, and I'm saying you as, generally, we might want to look into what learning styles does our partners possess, and how can we then, using that level of intelligence that we know about our partner, to communicate some of these key things that we're going out there and learning. And in that way, we can both discuss these things together and learn together and heal together. So yes, I am going to put it on us, as the woman, as Mother Nature, when it comes to healing and conflict resolution, working through things. Um, Not to say it's our fault at all, but I grew up with the saying that says, "Who knows better, do better," and that's the exact saying that I was at, the back of my mind when I was going through my separation, to say, if my husband is overwhelmed in his emotions, because we understand that men, from they're a child themselves, they've never been taught how to manage or process their emotions, moreover, how to handle it. Whereas us as the woman, we've been, generally, we've been brought up a lot more nurturing and caring. And so if that's the likely process my husband is going through, and I'm supposed to be in a better position to handle these emotions, even though they were so painful, like literally, like something was like piercing inside here. But and then also, if I'm going out there and I'm learning, and I know how to look into this and look into that, what is actually stopping me from educating myself a bit more? Because we never know all that there is to know about relationships. In fact, there is so much. Even the basic thing you spoke about, Sister Mutt, in the sense of putting the chairs back to back. Now, when you're around certain circle, you can hear about this every day, but when you're not, that's just not something that's common knowledge, and people might find it like really weird. But the point is that we never know all there is to know about relationships, and relationships in our community on another level. So yes, learning, so continuing to educate ourselves about relationships, about our story, about the love that we can possess for ourselves and we should possess for ourselves, and the fact that it's a constant work in progress. But also, once we're learning these things, how do we then seek out to understand our partner's learning style, so we can adapt what we know and teaching him, and yeah, healing and learning together.
I mean, that's a big question, and I think, I mean, in my own experience, I suppose I knew, first of all, you have to know your own learning style. That's the first thing. You have to be clear about your own learning style. And then when you're coming into a relationship, knowing their learning style, whether visual kinesthetic, audio, visual, audio kinesthetic, they range. It might be that they're very advanced, and they've got three of them in kind of synchronicity, which is, quite a high frequency types of beings, male or females. And it's about really understanding about yourself and how you learn. Tone is an important thing. It's a woman, because a woman, if we look at even just childbirth and how women are in their everyday life around childbirth, when they hear the sound of their baby, why do they know the sound of their baby? Tone, something that women are tuned to. There's statistics to state that actually a woman, a female girl and a female boy at the same age, by the time they're about 4 to 7, their ears, the development of their ears is different, so that women's ears are already high tuned to particular sounds and particular frequencies. So, it can give a disadvantage if a man is not taught to communicate. Personally, when it comes to children. One of the skills, again, mother is the first teacher. So for me, I teach all my children to baby sign language. I teach them sign language because when they have those 2 years, they take in all of that information and they're not saying anything. And so the signing gives them an access to communicate, such that when they do communicate, it allows them to communicate very, very effectively as boys, especially boys. That's really important. I think when it comes to going back to relationships and learning styles, I think you cannot get away from a person's learning style. Sometimes both of you, if one is, let's say, auditory visual and the other is a kinesthetic visual, that can in itself can create conflict, because one of you wants to do and the other one is not a natural doer. It's something that they have to develop. It's like a muscle going to the gym. It's not natural to them. Receptivity is important, because you can have all the, you can be as beautiful as you want or as self-aware as you want. And then again, receptiveness, being not just a giver, but a receiver. And men and women need to receive each other's gifts, receive each other's on their flaws, have a vision for who they want to be, carving out a better version of themselves, which is what, which is very important. They should want to be together in such a way where they want to find the better versions of themselves in each other. Because yes, there's the you have, and there's the you he has. And then that combination, that magic combination of, when you get into relationships, the glowing that happens between you and him, or the dynamics, or, when you're in a healthy relationship, momentum takes place in the relationship as well. Velocity takes place in the relationship as well. Things move fast. Time changes. Linear time no longer exists a lot of the time, and you're in non-linear time inside of that relationship, and you're also almost catching up with yourself inside of the non-linear time and linear time. There are, it's about synchronicity, wanting to understand each other. I remember speaking to a couple, a gentleman who'd been in his relationship on and off with the mother of his child for like 20 years, and I asked him, I said to him, so what's the secret for you? Because you both keep coming back together. And he said, it's about understanding. And I think, he, respect and understanding. You've got to be able to respect each other. You've got to be able to look at each other and like respect what he does or she does, or respect, elements of each other. It can't just be about, the physical, aesthetics. It just cannot be about that, because it's not going to have any quality, any weight. It's got no depth. It's short-lived. And if we're looking at sustainability, we have to go beyond that. Looks fade in time. Yeah, your body shape is going to fade in time. Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't stay healthy and you can't look wonderful, but you're going to change. That's a given. Yeah. And so it's important that you can love that person and care about that person and accept that person right now. And also, I'm in my early 40s. So for me, when I enter in a relationship, now I'm looking at the type of person. I'm saying to myself, okay, look, anything can happen. I can get older. He can get older. Something can happen. And I have to look at him and say, look, would, in the event that something happens, would I want to take care of that person? Yeah. Would I want would that person take care of me? Because these are the questions we don't ask. These are the uncomfortable things. We like all the kind of cuteness and how sexy it is.
Well, we say
important.
in sickness and health till death do us part. So we may not ask the question, but we certainly vow to it.
True, but the thing is, even then, look, even then, going into, I worry about that word formation. I don't really like that in sickness and health conversation, to be fair, because if you go into a relationship, you want to go into it with health. Yeah, you do. Yeah, but at the same time, sickness can fall upon you. I understand that, but I always find that a difficult set of word formations. I really like it. But I do think that we will get older, or challenges will happen. It could happen to one of our children. It's important that we know how to care for each other. We've got a level of, we've got an inner nurturer. The male in this day and time, the male and the female have to know how to nurture each other, not just in their words, but in their deeds. It's really important that, you know, when you're speaking to each other, you're speaking with love in your mouth. You're speaking as though, you know, there's honey in your mouth. Yeah, you know, gently speaking to each other. Yeah, you can, you know, that's not to say that you won't get into some kind of heat every now and
Because we
again,
do.
because we do. But at the same time, it's about how often that is. And that's as important to assess that, because that's a red flag in itself. But I think it's important.
Is it more about the frequency as opposed to how well you kind of recover and learn from? I suppose the frequency is a bit of it
I
as
think
well,
frequency is
but
important,
shouldn't it
because
be
if you,
more about...
I think recover, look, bounce back is all well and good, but you can get into a habit. Look, we have, you know, we have neural pathways that get built, yeah. If we into a habit, an ingrained habit and a groove for being in conflict, we will stay in conflict, and it'll become part of the nature and natural, you know, pattern of the family that you have. And then remember, if we're talking legacy and we're being aware that we're creating legacy, we have to be aware that we are passing down this kind of communication to our children. We have a duty of care not to be communicating in a particular way, yeah, because it's important for our children to each other. You know, things might happen, you know, when the children are not there, that's fair enough. But we have a duty of care too. You know, if we wouldn't do it in front of our children, we have to have, you know, enough self-discipline to do, not to do it when the children are not around too. Like, if you love yourself and you love your relationship,
I was going to say, yeah,
enough, take those kinds of things on. The bounce back, you know, why? But you know, you talked about somebody who, you know, a cousin of yours they've never argued. Now that's health. That can be healthy. That doesn't mean to say that, you know, it's not a healthy thing. It's important to be able to. They have a conversation clearly that, you know, they're able to have calm debate or calm dialogue and get their views across, maybe agree to disagree, or disagree agreeably, yeah, which is important. And I think, you know, learning about our relationships, like wanting to know about relationships, like there's those three things that we never learn about. Yeah, we're not taught about marriage, and we're not taught about warfare. Yeah, and those are the things that, you know, make up a community strength. Yeah, and so it's important that we look at, okay, how our relationship structure is. If we looked at I mean, I think I've said it before in one of our other shows, but you know, our relationships are very immature. We are the only community that have had an interruption, a 500-year interruption inside of the relationships that we've had. Therefore, we have to accept that we are, you know, in a almost like a fetus stage in learning now the new steps and the new grooves and the new patterns to walk into relationships with, because we weren't taught. You know, we were thrown into relationships. Or when we look in our Caribbean families, people not knowing who their aunt was raising them, their mother was this, their father was here, people coming from different countries, you know, especially the diaspora. You know, we recognize the breaks, you know, in structure. And we have to understand things like the relationship between the male and female and their children. If a man decides he's not going to be there for his children, or a mother decides she's not going to be there for his children, those things are going to have an impact. That man is going to come into the relationship with a level of abandonment. She is going to come into the relationship with a level of abandonment. And it takes a level of sensitivity. It takes somebody who cares about the human heart, yeah, to have a conversation with somebody and not treat them like they're damaged goods, but heal them, want to come into a relationship to heal them and take on, okay, you know what, I know who I can be to you. I know who I want to be for you. I know what I want to give you.
Well, yeah, well, I just want to interject. Shazanne, are you there?
I am. Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable because I've got a...
Okay.
Yeah.
As you've been hearing so far, how would you give it into your opinion of your journey of what she has just reflected from?
Oh gosh, sorry, because I'm in a lot of pain, so I was just trying to get myself comfortable, and I got a bit distracted because of the pain. So could you of
what you've heard so far and your reflection of what you've heard, how do you compare it in your journey?
Oh, okay. Well, personally, I have been in relationships where I could have got married, I could have had sustainable relationships, but because I hadn't healed from my own issues, I let those people go. And I think it was more a case of self-sabotage because my programming didn't allow me to accept that this particular man, for instance, wanted to marry me on 2 occasions. So I rejected the love because I didn't love myself. I didn't even, I was like, what do they see in me? Because I had such low self-esteem at the time. And that was even before I started my journey to self-love, So I personally think that you have to just do that work on yourself. I don't think it's down to anyone else. No one can do that work for you. You have to find that self-love within yourself. And it's better to do it before you join yourself with someone else, because it would just create more issues in a relationship if you're there trying to prop yourself up on someone else. You're trying to get love from someone when you don't really have that love for yourself. People say they do, but the actions show that they don't really truly love themselves. And to love yourself is to know yourself. So until you really get to know yourself, you won't truly love yourself either. So it's a personal journey. But having said that, you can do it with your partner, healing yourselves together. You can embark on that journey together. And if you both understand that you have issues and what those issues are, you can help each other through them. But personally, for me, I felt that I needed to heal myself before embarking on a relationship, just to make it easier on the other person and on the relationship. I prefer to do the work on my own, heal myself to a certain level where I can then feel that I'm ready to join myself with someone else.
Okay. Richie, are you there? Richie.
Let me just add, that's one of the reasons why I started up the self-love retreat. Now, if you know the Bledsoes, when they were here, they're the people that I'm doing the retreat with. They're now based in the Gambia. And when I first met them, just the way that they were with each other, the dynamics that they had between each other, I said to them that you're like a model to what I'm looking for in a relationship. The synergy that they had with each other. And so since they left England, which was over a year ago now, I've been in contact with them. We've really developed a really good, strong relationship. And they have a similar vision to mine, which is to build a village and to help our community to heal. So I'm now working with them to do the self-love retreat in the Gambia, where we're taking small groups of people away. And it's not just going to be with me, but they have a wealth of experience and knowledge on relationships. Both of them have been previously married and are now together and are building something together, which I really admire. And the qualities of their relationship are what I'm looking for. So I'm now taking women to the Gambia and running the workshops that I used to run separately, but I put them all into one retreat now. And we are going to continue that self-healing journey together. If you're in a relationship and you have a partner, the partner can come as well. Yeah,
I was
that's what
going to
it's all
say,
about, building
because you
sustainable
did say,
relationships.
yes, you did say I could come with my husband. So when I just
Yeah,
heard you
yeah, if it's
say women,
partners.
I was
Yeah,
like,
because my main work is with the women, but if she has a partner, even better, yeah.
yeah, I'm
Richie.
really looking forward to it. Can I just say, Terry,
Yeah,
Richie?
1 minute, Tamara. Let me just tell Richie to do a reflection and then come straight to you. All right? Richie. It's like he's not here. Okay, Tamira, just do what you got to do.
The mic.
No, I was
Okay.
going to say, can you
Is
guys
that
pop into
Richie?
some of the comments on the video?
But
There's been some.
this is what I was trying to get Richie to do.
Oh, right. Okay.
Rich.
It's okay. Is that something that you can probably pick up on then, Terry?
Okay, yeah,
Or do you want me to?
you continue, Tamira. I'm gonna go through. All right.
There's some really good comments that people have taken the time, who's not just listened, but to be able to share the comments. So we've got a number of people joining in the conversation of self-love and relationships. So I thought it would be really good to include some of their comments in
Can you
the
see them?
conversation. And
Can you see them?
sorry?
Can you see the
Yeah,
comments?
I can.
Oh, so let's
Yeah,
read some of them out. Yeah.
there is a huge amount. So I'm just gonna see where I can. I've got LOL Warrior, elegant. Okay, so I don't even know where to start with reading through some of these comments. So true. This generation is super stuck on looks. Um, it's very important to argue in a relationship. People want too much perfect imagery. That is so true. Like I was speaking to a sister earlier about marriage. And yes, there are very challenging times in marriage. And it's like after we spoke, it's like she suddenly said to herself, like, what did I really expect a marriage to be? And it's like, who taught us really? We're not even in tune with our elders who have sustained long-term relationships. So who are teaching us? I know definitely from the surrounding I grew up in, it was about working and putting the food on the table, the roof over our heads and the clothes on our backs. So yes, we grow up with the false perception of what a relationship actually is, and we want it to look and feel so perfect when it's not. It's very challenging, and knowing how to work through some of these challenges, take us a long way in our relationships. The same sister says, and this is big up L. Panachi. Sorry if I didn't get your name properly. But you did say we also have to understand some relationships are also a catalyst for a further relationship with self or with somebody else. So it's not always a negative thing. Relationships come to an end. Absolutely agree. Lots of times, whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, it's not always meant to last. We're meant to take what we can or should from it and evolve onto the next stage in our journey. But too often we try to hold on to things which we're not supposed to hold on to. And that's where sometimes it can end in not so good ways. And then we've got some people love to wholeheartedly. No, some people love so wholeheartedly, it needs a form of argumentative nature to break up certain relationships so the being can move on onto their true mirror reflection later on in their journey. Just growing a bit up. Most people in relationships also don't understand energy is always waxing and waning and don't move on to their intuition when to break away and reconnect during relationships to keep it fresh and vital. That's why in our ancient empires, the kings and queens had and slept in separate rooms at times. Um, Feel free to comment on that, guys. Um, Sister is also bigging us up. She was loving a number of the things that were being said. So I can see the agreement spot on.
I think that's a good point actually, is in terms of sustaining a long-term relationship, not to be around each other all the time because you don't get a chance to miss each other. I personally believe that I would have to have my own room, or just see them like once a week. Or once every 2
See,
weeks.
that is so funny.
But then it gives you something to look forward to,
It does. but I absolutely love being in my husband's company. And every time he's leaving to go to work, like secretly at the back of my mind, please don't go. Which is
Oh
funny
my
because
God.
when I know. It's funny because when I've got to go, I've got meetings, I've got this, I've got that. I know I've got to go, but I look forward to coming back home to him. So if it's a regular thing where, and again, it depends on what you're used to as well, because I've got a friend where her boy, like it was a long distance relationship, her boyfriend worked abroad, and every time he was supposed to come back home, she would kick up a hissy fit amongst us, her friends. You know, she developed a life without him. So then it was more challenging for her to adapt back to it, into it when each time he would come home. So it also depends on what you're used to and what you expect. But no, it's not always one-sided because yeah, I absolutely love spending time in my husband's company. I wish if we did more spending time together, like going places and traveling, and which I'm sure we will. But yeah, I'm not sure about the separate rooms thing.
Yeah, I don't love anybody's company more than my own. That's the problem. I
I mean,
really enjoy
I
my
would
own
say it's
company.
about the balance of things. I mean, there's a wonderful book called The Prophet, and the book talks about, being like, I think it's like guitar strings, and and so you are, your individual beings, your individual strings, but you come together, if you like, to make a tune. And I think having the balance of who you are as an individual, but bringing that to the table and going away to, work on yourself a little. It could be a few hours in a day. It could be, I think when you're working on your purpose as well, I think that's important. I think the more focus both of you have on a purpose, even if you have aligned purposes, you might have individual purposes as well. I think it makes a difference in, the dynamics. I think space is important, but I think also, in a relationship, some relationships you want to be with, I think it really is, and it depends on the relationship, because some relationships energetically you need space, yeah, and when you kind of need
Mm,
space from somebody, then sometimes that's a sign. But then sometimes there's, like you're saying, you want to wake up next to that person every day, you want to be with that person every day, you want to be waking, you spend as much as time you can with that person, you know especially if your time is scarce doing other things, whether it's even mothering and work, those things, you come to appreciate the time that you have with each other. I think valuing each other's time, when you're in it, and being with each other, being with each other when you're in it is, really advantageous to the relationship. It's quality over versus quantity, I'd say.
That's what I think. I much prefer quality over quantity, so it would be a case of, you know, you've got that to look forward to and it's intense and it's powerful, and then you can come away from it and you've got that to look forward to again. You could even be living in the same house, but again, like that person was saying, our ancestors knew to, it's like they were saying, it's like the moon, you have the waxing and the waning. There's times when the moon is at its powerful, that's the time you would be together, and then when it's waning you would spend time away from each other, and then you come back again,
Ladies,
say on the full moon.
can you hear my mic?
yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay, I would just like to just basically say on the man's perspective after listening to you lot.
You're a
Uh,
bit low, sorry.
can you hear me? Can you hear me
Mm-hmm.
a bit better now? Yeah, basically all I would want to say is again, look, as I'm speaking, the point's just gone from my head straight away.
From man's perspective, you were going to
Yeah,
say.
man's perspective. As far as wanting to see the person who they're with, I think most men would want to see their woman as much as possible. But the key element I was going to say is it is being comfortable with your own skin allows a natural
Yeah.
space to occur, I think. You know,
Yeah.
obviously, you both have your purpose in life mapped out as far as, at the very least, a job or something to occupy your day, as
Yeah.
opposed to a career or your real calling in life. That definitely has an effect. And obviously,
Yeah.
you knowing yourself is naturally going to allow you to have moments of quietness where one can go somewhere else and do something else. You know, that's your interest over there, my interest, and we naturally have that space. I think too many times the problem comes when the unbalance comes when one person has an interest, an overbalance of friends, activities, and then the other person doesn't, and they're more wrapped up in the activities of the partner, or based on their personality. Sometimes one is very introvert, one's very outgoing, you know, so you find one is living more in the wake of the next, and that can also be a problem or an imbalance. Or again, from a male dynamic, you have the jealousy angle where, you know, a man will, it sounds funny, but certain times nest themselves a lot quicker than a woman in a relationship, where he's happy to sit down and relax, whereas the woman now knows she's got a man at home and she now wants to enjoy herself more and take time to go out more and do certain things that a man now is naturally just like, well, nah, I'm not really interested. And that can also cause conflict. So again, it is about that balance of knowing yourself as well as obviously knowing each other's interests. So yeah, that's what I wanted to interject. But ladies, I know we're going strong, but I'm gonna naturally bring the proceedings round, and I'm gonna ask you all to give your final thoughts on this show, and we'll end it with Shazam at the end, so she gives her final thought as the special guest to this evening. But yeah, tell us any final thoughts that you have, based on the show, based on all that we've talked about. What do you want to leave the audience with?
Why don't you kickstart, Richie?
Yeah, why not?
It's my platform. I'm going to sign this out. How you mean? Yeah? Don't worry.
Well, for me personally, it's always going to go back to my how I see myself, how I see my life, how I try to live my life, and that is, it is true self-love that we will heal our people. The more we love ourselves, the way our eyes open up to who we are, not on the outside, but within ourselves. And we start to look at our brothers and sisters in a more positive light. We also start to look at our community in general, and we see the goodness in it, and we see where we can impact things for the better. Through self-love, we also make better decision for ourselves, in when it comes to relationships. We get into better relationships. And when things don't, go as well as we probably planned, then it's about taking time out to understand the situation and understand how we can better resolve it. There's no shame in the game to ask for help, but where we ask for help is very key. Um, let's break the cycles about going to our best friends to ask for help if the help is going to be very one-sided. Yes, I love myself, and your friend may love you as well, but it doesn't mean that it's the best advice you're getting. It's balanced and healthy. So if we need professional helps, professional help in order to sustain a healthy relationship, then by all means, do what's best for you, for your kind, for your future generations. And with that in mind, a lot of the decisions that we then make is a lot bigger than what's best for us as a complete individual walking alone, which we're not. We're part of a people. So yeah, continue loving and learning about yourself. Don't forget with the positive affirmations, looking in the mirror, look into your soul and see your soul through the eyes of what's driving us and directing our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and who we've become. And try to, yeah, scale it back to the point where, it may feel even a bit vulnerable and a bit naked, but then you can start building on that and loving what you're creating and who you truly are. So love yourself, love your people, and yeah, continue being you.
And I think, just to add on top of that, and Tamar, you said some fantastic points, and I think self-love is certainly at the heart of the conversation we've had tonight. But also, I think knowing yourself, observing yourself, you're doing what you're doing. I think recognizing that you can be complementary opposites. You don't have to be the same.
Yeah.
And I think recognizing, that you are in it to heal, if you're serious about your development, your consciousness, your growth, then, a conversation for, how you not just plan a relationship, wanting a relationship, planning how you want your relationship to look 5, 10, 15, 20 or so years from down the line. I think, don't expect to stay the same. If you want it to stay the same, then there's going to usually be a form of stagnation that takes place, and that fall from grace is an opening for a fall from grace, I'd say. So I think accepting that there'll be changes, whether it's in your vision for your lives or individual purposes, accepting each other, the character flaws as well, and working through them one by one. Being patient with each other is very important.
And yourself.
At this day and time when you are dealing with the instant gratification age. And, I just think, having a commitment to Black love, to relationships being sustainable, for, having a commitment to having them work, and wanting it to work. The commitment has got to be, on both sides. It can't be half, one side's feeling 70% and one's feeling 30%. It's got to be a balance of things, because you see in a relationship like that dynamic, sometimes things can happen, dramas then can happen in a family, and those things are the tests, and there's what they say, no testimony without tests. So expect your relationship to be tested, expect your relationship to, that which you value, you will be tested on. So it's a natural course of events, and it's being able to surf that and ride the wave, and do that with as much grace and ease as possible.
Yes. I think if you're single, spend your time, spend that time to work on yourself. Look at your weaknesses, or identify your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. If you're a couple rather, don't be afraid to seek help. Ask people who are already sustaining their relationship. That's why I'm facilitating writing that book, where couples will be sharing how they've managed to sustain their relationship. They're the best people to ask, as people that have already done it. And get counseling if you need it, because as I said earlier, that sometimes we break off the relationship just simply because we don't know how to move forward from a particular issue that we have, and we don't know how to deal with it. So find people who can help you work through those issues, who are already married or in long-term relationships, who have been through what you're going through. And yeah, self-love is the best love. Develop love itself, and you will naturally attract people who treat you the way you feel about yourself. And if you're in a relationship, treat that person how you want them to treat you. If you're both going the relationship of seeking to serve each other, then the relationship stands more of a chance of surviving, because you're both wanting to do the best for each other. And if you recognize that what you do for that person, you're doing it for yourself anyway. So you both, it shouldn't be a one-sided thing where one of you is trying to sustain the relationship and the other person is just, you know, not doing the work as well. You both have to be, as you said, said, committed to making it. Commitment must always start with yourself, you know, and your own personal self-development, self-love. Even when you're in a relationship, don't think, oh, well, now I've got the person, this is what I always wanted, now I've got that, or now I'm married, I don't need to continue that work on myself. It's never ending. You know, what I've noticed is the journey to self-love, it's never ending, because if you lapse, if you think, okay, now I love myself, you know, or now I've raised my level of self-esteem, now I'm attracting the things that I've always wanted, you can never just be complacent. You always have to be doing that work on yourself, because you can have a relapse, you know. So know that that journey is never ending. The journey to self-love, or the journey of self-love, is a never-ending journey. And the more love you develop for yourself and your people, that is what's going to help our community, because I'm very community focused rather than just myself and my partner. I'm always thinking about our community and looking at us as a whole. So if each of us individually are doing that work, then the whole community will heal, will all, you know, the whole community will love itself. And that is what is going to help us to raise back to the level, you know, on an individual level. Doing that self-love work will raise your level of self-esteem and help you to achieve the things you want in life. But if we do that as a community, then you can imagine what it would do on a mass level. So if we're really talking about getting ourselves back into a position in society that we should be in, like we've fallen from this high place of civilization and being the original people and the people that everybody came to and learned from, and we supposedly civil, everybody learned from us and we taught them how to be civilized. But now we are at the bottom of society. That's because we've forgotten who we are. So if we begin to learn who we are again, that will develop self-love within us, and that will raise our level of self-esteem individually and also as a community. And that's the importance of self-love.
I would just thank you for that, Shiz, and Sister Mo. I just wanted to add one final point to that in terms of self-love, the whole thing of the cup. So how I see myself is basically a cup where if I'm half empty, because I love myself, it means that I've got nothing to give. But what I do instead is to fill up my cup with things that will boost my energy and makes me feel more positive about myself. Things that I can feed off and it can energize me in other ways. But basically, it's about filling up the cup until the cup is running over. And once the cup is then running over, then that's when we know that we're in a position to give. And that, to me, represents self-love.
Exactly. That's what it was saying in the self-love poem that I read earlier. You've got to give of you fill yourself up until, and then you can give of your overflow. Most of us are giving and then wondering why we just feel drained all the time. So you need to focus on filling yourself first, and then you can give off your overflow. But we weren't taught that. We were taught to just give all the time and not give to yourself. So you should really give to yourself first. And then you...
Definitely.
Yeah.
People, it's been a nice, tidy, long one still today, where we've gone through a good few bits of information, broken it down, another aspect of the relationship. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, everyone for their comments in the chat room. Go back again and check out the past Kings and Queens shows where, as I said before, we're dealing with different aspects of relationships, where you can see the two sisters that you've seen this evening, Tamar and Sister Mort, breaking it down and talking with other guests as well. Thank you to Shaz for tuning in and giving us your thoughts on the panel. And again, you can see Shaz when she did her Kings and Queens book tour with TC Carrier and King Kevin. There's an in-depth interview and sit down on the Black Eyes TV sofa, so you can see that as well. Terry, do you have anything to say before we officially say peace to the people?
As I always say, buy black, believe in black, do the black movement, turn everything black. Let's go back to the beginning and let's start.
Black gold.
Yeah, black gold. It all begins from black. So, as I said, for this day, we've had a good long conversation, which has been fantastic, great, good comments. And I like people to subscribe, share, and like. So there's more to come and there's more things to hear. So in that, you can log in tomorrow once again, as we have a show tomorrow. And then we'll have other shows throughout the week till next week. You know, and I'm just going to leave it into Richie's hands as he's the key master to the Black Eyes TV 7.
And can I just say, I really love what you guys are doing with Black Eyes TV, the knowledge that you guys are sharing and the information you're putting out for our people. So it's really great. Keep it up. It's well needed. Thank you.
Much appreciated, my dear. Much appreciated. Thank you for that. Always good to have some jobs. So yeah, that's appreciated. Again, thank you to everyone that's been looking in and subscribing and checking out the shows. As Terry said, come back tomorrow.
Sorry, Richie. I can see the sister on the comments is asking for our website. I can't post it on there because YouTube won't allow us. So if we just say the website one more time.
Put it down there in the directions.
Sorry?
Put it in
Richie will put it on
video.
He'll put it in the description.
Okay, well, that's fine. But sis, if you're just listening, it's kingsandqueensunited.com. It will also be in the description of the show as well. Thank you.
Mine is journeyofassister.com. So we've got the self-love retreat. I'm going to Gambia next week. I'll be there till March. So if you're interested in joining us on the self-love retreat, visit journeyofassister.com, the events page. You'll find more information there. And on Sunday, I'll be at Katakata 132 Brixton Hill, giving more information about the self-love retreat there.
I think somebody asked a question on the website, on the chat, as to whether I had a website or a video log. So I am about to revamp my my work right now. I'm in Power and Birth, but I'm also I'm looking at the video logs and working with relationship birth. We're going to be talking about that somewhere in the future with Black Eyes. So just keep tuned.
That's all. Look out for her. She'll be here exclusive, Black Eyes TV. Yeah, we got the rights.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, people. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah. Look out for the future shows. Support Black media. Peace, peace, peace.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you, guys.